Hello, everyone. My name is Alfonso. I am the online communications coordinator for the Move to Amend Coalition, and I'm coming live to you from Central Pennsylvania. Welcome to this new edition of the Move to Amend Live Report. We are back after a couple months on break, so sorry for the wait, and thank you for tuning in. Tonight, I'm joined by
Greg Coleridge, Outreach Director, uh, beaming in from the North Coast here in Greater Cleveland.
And Jennie Spanos. I'm serving as a national fellow to the Move to Amend Coalition, and I'm tuning in from Pensacola, Florida.
For those joining for the first time, Move to Amend is the campaign to pass what is called the We the People Amendment. That's HJR 48 in the current session of Congress, to the U.S. Constitution to make crystal clear that corporations do not have constitutional rights of any kind and to get big money out of politics. Please ask us questions throughout the program using chat. We'll try to answer them all, either live or someone from staff, one of us, will try to respond to it later, either one of us or someone else, if you're watching the recording. Also, please share and retweet this live stream using the hashtags #MoveToAmend and #LiveReport, not just because it's something to do, but for a chance to win a really cool t-shirt. One lucky winner from Twitter and one from Facebook will be announced at the end of this live stream. So don't go anywhere.
That's right. Please don't go anywhere. Coming up, we have the corporate rule news that we are tracking. Welcome back, everyone. So, in case you haven't heard, in the last few weeks, there has been a huge hype on the news and on social media about men returning to space. Correction, billionaires are going to space. That is right. For three of the world's richest men, space is indeed the final frontier, for their egos at least. And it seems like the morning talk shows can't have enough about billionaires going to space. There is a green flag to prove that is the amount of time that broadcast TV shows have spent covering Bezos' rocket launch in a single day. 212 minutes to be exact, versus the amount of time spent talking about the climate crisis over the whole year. Only 267 minutes talking about climate change in a whole year. Wow. So let us unpack some more facts about the space race. Well, first off, billionaires rocketing off to space isn't a sign of progress. It is a sign of the grotesque inequality that allows a select few to leave Earth behind while the rest of humanity suffers. And no, I'm not against someone trying to advance us in a frontier. I just don't think that we need billionaires colonizing space right now. What we do need is for them to pay their fair share of taxes so that people can thrive here on Earth. Let me explain a little bit more. For many decades, corporations have seized the constitutional rights intended only for human beings, and they have hired armies of lobbyists, attorneys, and accountants to abuse the tax code and get away with paying as little in taxes as possible. In 2007, and again in 2011, Jeff Bezos didn't pay any income taxes. This is according to a ProPublica report. Then, in 2017, thanks to the Tax Act, which increased corporate tax cuts, the former Amazon CEO paid little to no taxes once again. And Tesla CEO Elon Musk also skipped paying federal taxes in 2018. And in 2015 and 2017, he only paid $70,000, which means that for Musk, his true tax rate for the 5-year period between 2014 and 2018 is actually much lower than the national average household income tax. You heard that right. Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos paid on average 3.5% taxes on the $400 billion in new wealth that they amassed between 2014 and 2018. Now compare that to the average American that an American paid during 17 in Texas, which is 14.6%. And with the pandemic lifting billionaires' wealth by nearly 1.6 trillion with a T, there has never been a more urgent time to tax the rich. British billionaire Richard Branson might be familiar with the concept of paying higher income taxes, as the UK has a 50% tax rate for the top earners, and which might have prompted Branson to purchase Necker Island, an island in the middle of the Caribbean where the billionaire pays zero taxes. And well, paying your fair share of taxes is very important. Taxes is how we pay for public schools, medical research, roads, bridges, emergency services, police and fire departments, and yes, even the military. Oh, and don't forget about federal bailouts and corporate handouts. Those also come from taxpayers' money. And higher taxes will help have a more robust middle class, which will actually benefit the space travel business in the long run, because that would create more paying customers. A higher yet fair tax could also pay for things like universal healthcare. So, despite what billionaires and neoliberals think, paying your fair share of taxes is very patriotic. Uh, but I'm sure you all know that. What you may not know is that right after his 10-minute joyride, that by the way costs $2.5 million per minute, Jeff Bezos had the nerve to thank every Amazon employee and every Amazon customer because they all paid for his multi-million-dollar trip to space. In response to Bezos' remarks, Representative Jayapal tweeted this: "If Amazon paid its workers fairly and did not fight unionization, workers would not be funding expensive hobbies of billionaires. They would be taking care of their families and living dignified and fulfilling lives." Yeah, Representative Jayapal is right. Seeing the richest man on the planet admit without a sign of remorse that all his wealth comes from his employees who have been underpaid and have been mistreated for so long, and then to contrast that with the many climate crisis examples, like the fires in British Columbia and the West Coast, the record cold temperatures in Pakistan, the flooding that's happening in Europe, and to see that at a moment when we have so many crises here on Earth, the richest and most powerful people are turning their eyes away from the planet into the stars, it's infuriating. I mean,
Disgusting.
yeah, totally. I understand that human space exploration has some advantages and that it's something that will happen sooner or later. But to allow these particular billionaires who have a long record of exploiting their employees and even the government to be the ones to take us into space might not be the best idea. I don't trust any of them. I don't trust what they when they say that they are trying to make space travel accessible to all. Who could be able to pay $55 million for the trip to the International Space Station on board of SpaceX Crew Dragon, or $250,000 to ride on Virgin's Galactic space plane? Only a very select few. And all for what? A few minutes of feeling weightless in space? Which, by the way, people wrongly equate being in space with feeling weightless. You're only weightless for as long as you are in free fall. And if that's all you want to experience, there are way cheaper options. So instead of breaking the bank just to go to space, go to Six Flags instead. We are many years away from actually conducting any serious space exploration. That's right. Let's put it out into perspective, shall we? Let's imagine a schoolroom globe, like one of those replicas of the planet. Richard Branson only went 2 centimeters above the globe. Jeff Bezos went a little bit higher. The International Space Station, to which Elon Musk taxied 4 astronauts, is 1 centimeter above the globe. The moon would be about 30 feet away, and Mars would be a mile away. Therefore, realistically speaking, the day when space travel would be accessible to everyone is still pretty darn far away. And this will always be something exclusive for the wealthy. But who knows? I might be wrong. I'm interested to see what you all think. Let me know in the comments if you think that the cost of space travel would decrease over time, like it was the case with airplane travel. But what if they do? What if billionaires do succeed in making space travel popular and affordable? Would there be an environmental consequence? Well, the answer is yes, of course, no doubt. The commercialization of space travel would come with vast environmental consequences. Right now, the number of rockets flying is very small, only 114 reported in 2020 versus 100,000 planes that fly every single day on average. However, the emissions from the rockets are emitted right into the upper atmosphere, which means they stay there for longer, about 2 to 3 years. SpaceX and Virgin Galactic, who still use conventional fossil fuels, emit 100 times more CO2 per passenger than a regular flight. And Jeff Bezos' rocket, despite how clean he claims it is, still has negative effects on the environment because of the water vapor released up in the stratosphere, which could interfere and deplete our ozone layer. So it's not so green after all. So in discussing the greenness and goodness of these space explorers, we really need to remember the ethics they have shown here on Earth before we even allow them to influence higher levels of power and perhaps traveling to space someday. What is their vision for space travel anyways? Business and profit? A whole industry dedicated to offering the very wealthy the opportunity to get a glimpse of the vastness and darkness of outer space just a few minutes of feeling weightless? I mean, do we really need to burn so many gallons of fossil fuels, spend so many millions of dollars just to go about 62 miles high into the sky to observe the vastness and darkness of space? The answer, I think, is no. Well, you can just wait until the sunset. That is a joke I heard from Neil deGrasse Tyson on his Star Talk show, which I will be sharing the link on the chat. But yeah, I'm really curious to hear what you all think. So please share your comments and questions in the chat, and we will try to answer them during the live stream or afterwards. Thanks.
I
Thanks,
see we've gotten a
Alfonso.
couple comments already related to what you said,
Oh, cool. Let me take a look.
Alfonso, and just some general comments of where we can get a stamp. So,
Thank you for the interesting information too, Alfonso. As y'all know, there are too few voting rights and too many corporate rights. This troubling statement's become increasingly evident. What amount of democracy do we have in this country when behemoth business corporations are appealed to by the public to preserve its key provisions in basic voting rights? For me, it's an obvious example of corporate rule when civil and voting rights groups, along with other activists, run full-page ads, demonstrate, text bank, trying to pressure major companies to oppose new voter suppression laws. I'll say it again. There are just too few voting rights and too many corporate rights. And voter suppression right now is sweeping across the country at an alarming rate. This year alone, there have been more than 400 bills included with provisions that restrict voting access that have been introduced in 49 states. That's just since January. During the same time period, 18 states, that's more than a third of the states, have enacted 30 laws that make it harder for people to vote. These laws make mail-in voting and early voting more difficult. They impose harsher voter ID requirements. They make purging eligible voters from the rolls more likely. Move to Amend's always recognized the importance of the basic tenet of the right to vote in a democracy. The right to vote was included in our original language of the We the People Amendment, although it was removed due to the complicated nature of the provision. There remains no doubt that there needs to be constitutional protections to protect the right to vote, especially given the lengths of which some will go to take that right away. Those such as the Heritage Foundation, Jessica Anderson, she's the executive director of the Heritage Action for America. It's a sister organization to the Heritage Foundation. She bragged during a secretly taped gathering of the foundation's donors in April that in some cases they actually draft legislation for the states, or they have what they call a sentinel on their behalf give the model legislation to legislators so that it has that grassroots, bottom-up type of vibe. That's a direct quote. And take the Georgia law, for example. She said they had 8 key provisions that the Heritage Foundation recommended. The vote is the most powerful instrument ever designed by man for breaking down injustice and destroying the terrible walls which imprison men because they are different from other men. That's a quote from Lyndon B. Johnson over 50 years ago after signing the Voting Acts Right. And the right to vote continues with enhanced vigor to be under siege. Fortunately for many, we're taken to the streets and legislative offices in solidarity across the country during the August recess, demanding action to protect our right to vote. And we encourage all of y'all to take that time this month to plug in with our allies leading the way. Raise your voices and be clear. There are too few voting rights and too many corporate rights, and we need the We the People Amendment and our right to vote protected.
Hear, hear.
Very well said. Mm-hmm.
Well, we have one more issue in the news, corporate rule issue we wanted to bring up before we sort of engage with you, hopefully in some vigorous discussion. So please use this opportunity to ask questions or make comments in the chat. Several of you have already done that. For our last issue, it actually is one that goes back a couple of weeks to the end of the Supreme Court session. As you may know, the annual session begins in October and ends generally at the end of June. And boy, there were a number of horrific decisions by the Supreme Court at the end of their term. One related to, a couple actually related to corporate rule and corporate constitutional rights. One, by the way, having to deal with voting issues, making it much more difficult to have people cast their votes, related to Jennie, and that related to Arizona. A couple of laws that were challenged and were basically made to where it's going to be much more difficult for people to cast votes without them being thrown out. But the one decision I want to focus on is one called Americans for Prosperity, maybe you've heard of them, versus Bonta. Bonta being the California Attorney General. It's a new attack on campaign finance rules and laws that aren't all that strong to begin with because of corporate constitutional rights. Thanks to this decision, they are much weaker. The case was brought by 2 conservative tax-exempt charities, nonprofit groups, Americans for Prosperity, which, as you may know, is run by the Koch brothers. Well, there's only one of them left. One passed away last year. And another group, the conservative Christian public interest law firm called the Thomas More Law Center. Specifically, both groups took issue with being compelled by the state of California to submit to the state their IRS Form 990, which contains, as you may know, if you have to file for an organization you're connected with, large contributors, and in this case, contributions of more than $5,000 in a particular tax year. That's what the state of California said we want to know about. And the reason is this law, the state disclosure law, was originally passed a number of years ago to try to prevent corruption. Well, the court ruled 6-3, sort of following the conservative majority of the court, that law was way too broad. They said that the burden of proof wasn't on the plaintiffs, meaning the two nonprofit charitable groups, American for Prosperity and the Law Center. The burden of proof wasn't on them to indicate why this was a First Amendment violation, but rather on the state to provide and explain and justify the specific reason or rationale that served the government's interests. It wasn't enough just to say, we're trying to prevent corruption. There has to be a very specific reason, very specific. And what this does is it makes even it more specific than what has ever been on the books. And the charitable organizations argued that to allow this would provide a chilling effect to those individuals who wish to associate by making political or charitable contributions to these two nonprofits. Well, the concern about this goes far beyond charitable organizations to campaigns, political campaigns that don't look now are funded more and more by huge amounts of money and increasingly by dark money, meaning money that is not followed, is not known, is hidden, is not transparent. This decision is likely to be used, carried over from charitable organizations to for-profit organizations like dark money groups that contribute or invest in political campaigns, which is already a huge problem, but is likely to get a lot worse. And specifically, the concerns are dark money. It invites corruption. You don't know what kind of promises are being made. And second, you don't know actually where these dollars are coming from. There are current U.S. laws that prohibit contributions or investments from foreign agents, from foreign governments, from foreign individuals. Who the heck knows whether those have already been going on? Likely has. It's a lot more likely that we're going to see this thanks to that decision. The big takeaway from this, from our standpoint of Move to Amend, is that the justices ruled that dark money is not just simply free speech, but now is protected by another part of the First Amendment. The First Amendment has sort of 5 pieces to it: right of, free religion, free speech, right of assembly. Another is free association. So this is a new argument. Now money is speech. It's always been that way, at least since 1976 Buckley versus Vallejo decision. And dark money is now, under the First Amendment, free association. So this decision is to enshrine, if you will, dark money in even more secrecy, using not speech, but association. So we're now on a clear path, as Senator Sheldon Whitehouse has said, and I quote, "We are now on a clear path to enshrining a constitutional right to anonymous spending in our democracy and securing an upper hand for dark money influence in perpetuity," unquote. Now, just one other point on this, and that is, if you recall, when the Citizens United decision was passed in 2010, one of the arguments for the majority, rather thin one at that, 5-4 majority, the argument by the 5 justices that ruled in favor of giving sweeping brand new powers of spending money or investing money in elections by wealthy individuals and corporations was, well, at least it's transparent so that voters know where that money's coming from. No longer. And it's important to understand, really, that even if, and there are people argue this, and organizations out there that argue this, that we need to have a 28th Amendment just solely, exclusively to overturn Citizens United, and or to just get rid of money as speech. Well, my friends, we could wake up tomorrow morning, and voila, Citizens United could be a thing of the past. Buckley versus Vallejo, that equates money as free speech, is a thing of the past, and that would not affect this decision one single iota, because this decision equates money as, if it carries over to for-profit entities that are contributing politically, which is a clear path to doing that, money is not simply speech, but money is also free association, which Citizens United and Buckley versus Vallejo in particular does not address. So at this point, we want to open it up for discussion. Let's take a couple of minutes, if we can, team, to look for comments, questions, and respond.
Yeah, in response to the question about where can I get a stamp, I share in the chat the link to our online shop where you can get all your goodies and the stamp stampede and shirts, whatever you may want.
Fernandez says, yeah, thanks for addressing the issues of dark money. People think this only happens elsewhere in the world, but really, U.S. is so guilty of this. You mentioned that this case was brought by Americans for Prosperity and the Koch brothers. And of course, they are big donors of a lot of these voter suppression laws, the Heritage Foundation. And of course, Alfonso's information about billionaires in space, really all this is billionaires acting poorly. And there's only one solution, the We the People Amendment, to start.
Right.
Dave brought up, I didn't think that the billionaires were doing this for their egos. I thought they were doing it to prove to the government that private corporations can take over part of NASA's workload. I think you're right on. It's both. It's probably a few other things, but certainly the billionaires out there, among others who are part of the power elite and the incredibly rich, well-to-do, despise government for the most part. Not all, but for the most part do, and are always looking for ways to privatize / corporatize public services, public assets, public, you fill in the blank, for them to take over. Because anytime you can privatize or corporatize a public service, something that oftentimes can best be done and is almost designed to be done by the government, when you can create a monopoly, wow, there is an incredible amount of money to be made, particularly if it's a monopoly. Because how do you get into that field? It's pretty darn tough. The electricity, supplying electricity in this country is a wonderful example. There's so many others. So that's one of the reasons. We don't want to continue to plant the seed that government can provide effectively any kind of service. Now, that's despite the fact that government, these days in many cases doesn't, and that's for a number of reasons, bureaucratic, but part of it is because they've been captured by the private entities and private interests that have used or misused or abused the government institutions for their own gain. So it's no wonder at all why people feel that oftentimes government is inefficient, is ineffective, can't be trusted, and is serving not the interests of the 99%, if you will, but of the 1%.
Absolutely. I remember the last space shuttle landing before it all went privatized. I went to that. I'm in Florida, and I cried because it's just one more step of private for everything, private for profit, healthcare, prison, now space travel. Lawrence said, does HJR 48 need to be changed to address all the unjust big money issues?
I think it speaks, the current text speaks pretty well to that part of what it is Move to Amend is trying to do. The two features of the We the People Amendment. One, to declare that money is no longer a form of political free speech. And I think the wording as it currently stands in the 117th Congress is spot on and captures and is able to address, a good deal of this. The free association part of this is best captured actually by the other part, which is corporations should not have constitutional rights, any of them, not just political free speech, but all the other parts of the First Amendment, right not to speak, some religious rights that Hobby Lobby kind of came right up to the edge of addressing directly. Fourth Amendment search and seizure, Fifth Amendment takings, 14th Amendment due process, equal protection. There's Seventh Amendment, there's Eighth Amendment stuff that's really not oftentimes mentioned. That's where I think the amendment can be improved upon. And we have actually been meeting with a number of, and have had discussions with a number of constitutional law professors who have already given us some informal commentary on how to close what they think would be some potential loopholes in the current language of Section 1 that equates or that tries to declare that only human beings have inalienable rights. So that may be something that we look at more carefully between now and the 118th session of Congress. There are a couple of other comments here. Attention, Bernie Kratz. Why is MTA no longer nonpartisan? Movement now supports the movement for a People's Party, a third-party effort that is democratic exit and ceases to be nonpartisan, etc. It goes on. Actually, Movement as an organization does not endorse that party or any party. Individuals within Movement, as is the case of individuals within any organization, can, as individuals, individually choose to support or not support any cause, any issue, any political candidate, any political party. But we do not as an organization. We believe that the amendment remains not just bipartisan, but transpartisan, in that it speaks to issues that transcend, we think, any single political ideology, but tries to go to the very heart of self-governance, self-determination, sovereignty, democracy, a right to decide wherever you want to call it, because it's trying to shift power back from the judicial arena. That is where currently the issue rests on the ability of corporate entities and well-to-do individuals to decide. It's not in the arena of the legislature, where Democrats, Republicans, any other members of any other party can make those decisions. At one time, that was the arena where money was decided, the amount of money to be spent, how much to be spent, where it could be spent. And at one time, through corporate charters, that was the arena where corporate behavior was defined and was authorized. Through this arena that, at least in some senses, indirectly, at least on paper, it's democratic because we elect those legislators that in turn created these corporate charters. But corporate constitutional rights was a process of shifting that authority and that ability to define corporate entities from the legislative arena, as well as money and speech, to the judicial arena, where whether you're a Dem, whether you're a Republican, whether you're independent, sorry, you have no voice, you have no choice. All you can be is on the outside, booing or cheering. You are not on the playing field. You're in the stands at best, if you're even in the stadium. So by being not on the playing field, we have no power. And that means transpartisan-wise, we have no power to shape decision-making that we should. And that's what this amendment would do. It would shift decision back to the legislative arena, where we could flex our democratic muscles and decide how much money should be spent on elections, whether it should be private, whether it should be public, whether we should have campaign seasons that, in like many countries, is limited. Wouldn't that be refreshing? And to define corporate entities the way they should be defined by us, we the people. We created these entities. We should have the power and the authority to define them.
That poster went on to say, move to amend should stay focused on getting money out of politics, which is obviously an important aspect of what we're doing. But as you so eloquently pointed out, it's about corporate constitutional rights and them being able to give without limit in our elections. It's not our focus. We're trying to build real democracy.
Well, the amendment really has both dimensions: the money in politics, which, does need to be addressed, no question, but also corporate constitutional rights. There are groups out there, by the way, that maybe some people listening in would be familiar with: the Community Environmental Legal Defense Fund and the National Community Rights Network, that have, at a local level, through citizen ballot initiatives, passed any number, dozens, actually scores of initiatives that have tried to protect the health, safety, and welfare of their citizens, of their residents, of the community, of their natural world in their community that have been overturned. And it hasn't had anything to do with money and politics, but it's had everything to do with some of these other corporate constitutional rights. And that's happened because of something called preemption, where despite the fact that communities may pass, I don't know, everything from trying to prevent fracking in their community or trying to control the selling of guns or trying to prevent, I don't know, hog farms from coming into certain urban areas or, you know, just huge industrial plants and or the dumping of toxic waste in communities. All of that has been overturned, oftentimes by something called preemption, where those local laws passed a lot of times by, in the state of Pennsylvania, Republican county commissioners and city township people, not just Democrats, but Republicans. Those have been overturned because what the powers to be have done is they've gone to the state and said, you pass a law that preempts the local right to decide, or they've gone to court and have used the 14th Amendment or the Commerce Clause to do that. So again, that has absolutely nothing to do with money and politics, but is still a direct affront to democratic governance. What else?
I'm looking for more comments or questions. I guess we can move on. If people have any questions throughout the program, we can always stop and answer those.
Yep.
So
Always willing to cuss and discuss anything. So feel free to
of course.
bring it up.
Alrighty, in that case, let's keep on moving. Coming up is campaign updates. So don't go anywhere. And if you're listening live, please share and retweet for a chance to win a t-shirt at the end of the show. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back with the campaign updates. Welcome back, everyone. So great news. The We the People Amendment is back in Congress, and it is stronger than ever. We currently have 68 co-sponsors. Our goal is to reach 100 co-sponsors in this congressional year. So that means there's still a lot of work to be done, and we could use a hand. So please visit the Move to Amend website and find out if your representative is already a co-sponsor, or give them a call if they are not. And special thanks to our congressional lead, Representative Pramila Jayapal from the state of Washington, who is our lead and has been championing for our amendment, and also to the hundreds of thousands of volunteers across the country that make all this possible. I'm going to be sharing a link in case that anyone is interested in joining our campaign. But yeah, what else we got?
Thanks for that, Alfonso. Also, our Pledge to Amend campaign page is back up and active. You know, election seasons and special elections provide numerous opportunities for us to reach out and engage new activists and organizers who may not be well acquainted with the work and the mission of Move to Amend. And it can also provide an excellent opportunity to engage with candidates and to get them on record in support of the We the People Amendment. It is an important first step in getting the amendment passed. You can just simply go to movetoamend.org/pledge-amend. And there's also a wealth of resources on there that we've created to help guide you through this process. You can always reach out to the national team too. We're always here for you.
Yeah, and this is a good time to try to reach out because, you know, this year, it's a quote unquote an off year. So there's a lot of local elections going on at the city level, county level, sometimes even state legislature.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep. All right. When's the first day of August? I'm sort of losing track here. Is it Monday? Sunday? I don't know. But August represents the month that Congress.
Sunday.
Sunday? Okay. August is the month that Congress likes to take the better part off. I mean, they're off incredible numbers of days throughout the year anyway, and one can argue maybe that's not all a bad thing, but that's a whole other discussion. I think they're in session for the first week of August, but for the remaining 3.5 weeks, they're off, which means they're either back in the district if they're not on, taking personal vacation or off on some political junket. But what this does is the August recess has been a time where we have tried to encourage you and others that you may organize to individually or collectively put a call in or make a personal visit to your congressional representative. This is really a wonderful time to do that, particularly to call locally. It's hard enough to try to get your message through federally, because at any one time there can be people calling not just from the district, but lobbyists and people from all over the country, if not outside the country, calling in. But locally, there are much fewer numbers of people calling. So your voice has a greater chance to be heard. So feel free to use the 3.5 weeks, in fact, all of August, to call in locally to your congressional representative. You can find that out, just search your representative, whoever she or he is, and find that local number and reach out and encourage him or her to co-sponsor if they already are not a co-sponsor. And there's 68 that are listed on congress.gov, but there's 2 others that we learned here in the last day or two, right, Alfonso? I think there are 2 others we've been told. So we may be up to actually 70, which means 70% of the way there. So feel free to make those calls. Every Wednesday, as part of this process, we remind our representatives that money is not a form of free speech and corporations are not people. We call this our We the People Wednesday campaign. So it may be a little late, even those of you on the West Coast, to call in, but actually they all have messages. So it's never too late, technically, up until midnight, wherever you are, to smile and dial and call your representative and leave a message for him or her to say, please use your congressional break while you're on a beach somewhere to look up the We the People Amendment and to tell your aide to contact Representative Jayapal's office and become a co-sponsor, to join the at least 70 other peers of yours who have already joined the cause. So feel free, follow the link shared on chat and start calling.
That's right. And before we move on, we have a few questions in the chat. Let me find it real quick. So Fernando is asking this question: is there any way to garnish support from institutions such as higher education? Does anyone want to tackle that one?
I can weigh in on it a little bit. I think it's a great place to share Move to Amend for sure. I don't know. We don't have any actual universities that have endorsed us, to my knowledge, but there's definitely been a lot of writing about it. Greg's been very successful in reaching out to law schools and, speaking to them. So he could probably speak more to the best way to go about reaching out to education institutions.
Yeah, I think when we talk about higher education, we need to break that down. There's a number of, I think, pieces and parts to it that are, they're populated by potentially a lot of supporters. Take professors, for example. They all, for the most part, well, not necessarily all, but a lot of them are unionized. So there is the union of professors, and there's some national professor unions that could be approached. Many professors are part of their discipline association, the American Political Science Association, American Economic Association. There's a sociological association. I would imagine there's, English Teachers Association, where they come together, convene, have conferences, plenary, symposiums, and the like. We have been trying for the last few years to try to make inroads. We almost got into the American Political Science Association this year, but they wanted $500 just to have a table. So it's a little prohibitive, but what we're trying to do is court a professor or two within that discipline to have them sort of on our behalf reach out to say, hey, let's do a workshop on trying to connect that particular academic discipline to power, democracy, lack of governing, ability to self-govern, money in politics. Some are easier to do than others, obviously, but you think about it, sociology, economics, government, constitutional professors, even psychology. There's there's a group, Psychologists for Social Responsibility, that passed a resolution a number of years ago in support of the We the People Amendment, because this is messing people up psychologically, not being able to sort of have authentic, your persona. Part of who you are is to express yourself beyond yourself. And what better way to express yourself in our society than to try to affect policy changes? If you can't do that, that's going to mess you up. It's going to mess us all up. And so, there's all kinds of ways. So there's that arena or way. Another route to take, of course, is students. There's student organizations. There's national student organizations that focus on environmental issues, that focus on governing issues, that, focus on immigration concerns. Just a whole assortment of concerns. So trying to get in, whether it's on a single campus or through the national group, is a route. So there's a few there, through through unions, through professional associations of professors, through student organizations. There's even, of course, student bodies, where there's student, Democratic and Republican groups, but there's also like student senates, and trying to approach them if you have, of someone who has any entree. And the only other thing to say is there are, in particular, on many campuses where there are law schools, there's a Federalist Society that are sort of on the right, and there's the American Constitution Society sort of on the left, of more progressives that look at these issues of the like. And so trying to connect and get them to think about and talk about these issues. So.
Thank you, Greg. And thank you, Fernanda, for the great question and the great suggestion. She is suggesting that we, instead of giving away a t-shirt, we could give away some postcards, which apparently are 100 postcards for $15. And that would be a great idea to promote Move to Amend. I think that is a fantastic idea. And whoever the winners for tonight are, you can let us know if you want a t-shirt or the postcards. Thanks again for that. And then I see that Lawrence had a question, which I believe the short answer is 75. And what else?
So we're almost there this time, and we're only 7 months into it.
Which, considering how slow everything moved this year, is fantastic.
Yeah, in the last session of Congress, I don't think there was an insurrection. Correct me if I'm wrong. So,
right.
That seemed to have occupied some time, as well as, early on, the whole effort at impeaching. There's just a lot of stuff that distracted Congress, and so they're sort of behind the
pandemic.
Well, right.
Yeah, that's true. And well, another super easy way to support and to grow the supporter base pushing for the We the People Amendment is to recruit your friends and family. Plus, you can get cool prizes for doing that. So go ahead and create a free and totally easy to create account, and then start recruiting everyone you know. The more people you recruit, the more cool prizes that you can win. And I'm going to go ahead and share the link of the chat so you can all go ahead and create your accounts and start recruiting your friends and family.
Awesome. Yeah, I wanted to bring up, we were talking about education, reaching out to educational folks, and a volunteer and constitutional scholar, uh, Daniel Greenwood. He's a professor of law at Hofstra University, internationally recognized scholar on corporations and democracy. He's also co-authored several Supreme Court amicus briefs, including Citizens United. And he recently had an article published in Common Dreams, in support of Move to Amend. And, where he highlights the opposition to freedom coming from, not from foreign kings, and there are aristocratic courtiers, but from our own domestic elites, the uber rich of the new Gilded Age. That's available on our website and Common Dreams. I think Alfonso will share the link for that.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Alfonso.
And if you're really interested in that, and you'd like to, learn more and read up more, and it's a little on the legalistic side, but the guy has written just a real, among many pieces, one just real, how do I say it diplomatically, kick-ass law review article that talks about abolishing all corporate constitutional rights. We don't need them. And he just makes a real compelling case. So if you're interested in getting a copy of that law review article, hit us up on the chat, and we can, I'll make sure that I send you the link to it. It's very well done.
Fantastic.
All right, so what's next? Please ask us your question through the chat. Also, again, last call to retweet this live stream using Move to Amend and live report for a chance to win a T-shirt. So maybe this is the point.
Or some postcards.
Or postcards, that's right, whatever the case may be. Maybe we should do that. One should be a T-shirt and one should be a postcard. How's that? I think it's a grand idea. And another grand idea that connects to the next thing we're going to talk about was a comment made by Lawrence about, he says, I think a special donation or special donations would come in to fund conference attendance by Move to Amend. So let's pull out all the stops. Good idea. A lot of times people want to know what their money's being used for. And if we can make the case that, we want to go to this conference where there's going to be X number of people, we have a table, there's an opportunity to press the flesh with a number of people that we think can become allies, organizational or individual. That could be quite compelling. So thanks for that, Lawrence, who's a very, just a terrific affiliate leader and part of the Labor Caucus at Move to Amend. And so that's a segue to just making a pitch. Move to Amend is a 501c4 organization. We have a 501c3 arm. We are not, and let me repeat, are not funded by corporations, by Jeff Bezos. He's not sending us part of his space check, or Elon Musk, or billionaires, or even millionaires that we know of. There's no pay to play. There's no money that comes from the government or big foundations. We rely, as it should be, we rely on grassroots support, because historically that's how successful transformative social movements have always been funded. Sometimes there's a person, a wealthy individual or two, who's willing to help out with no strings attached. And we're certainly willing to entertain that. But in general, our general principle and underlying basic understanding and commitment is to focus and depend on and be accountable for people, to people who fund us. And so that's you. We try to be accountable through our work. We try to be accountable for our strategy, and we try to be accountable for what resources we we receive. So thank you so much for consideration. There should be a link that is posted on how you can donate. Go to move2men.org/donate.
That's right. And I'm in the process of picking the winner for Facebook. So we just take me about a minute. But I think, Jennie, would you like to give us what the hell yeah moment for today would be? And I could just share the winners in a second.
Oh, absolutely. Of course, this is a time that we kind of look out on the grassroots and look at the movement in general and see and do a call out for those who have had successes or are doing something wonderful. And I also want to thank you all for tuning in tonight. Really appreciate that. And this new format's a little different, but we really wanted to hear more about what y'all have to say. So we wanted to try to do something a little different. But the Hell Yeah moment tonight is the Bahia Pipeline. And it's going to be brought to you by Justin Pearson. He's the co-founder of the Memphis Community Against the Pipeline. And he gives thanks to God because the Bahia Pipeline connection was canceled, thanks to all the work of the community activists and the organized effectively to make this happen. And they've been working really hard and standing firm. It's a great demonstration of what real people power can do.
I'm wondering, before we go to that, there was a couple of comments by one person, 3 different ones. Do we want to spend a moment to respond to those?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. From Peas Mold. We are lobbying our reps. Thank you very much for doing that. If there's any specific way we can help that we haven't, please reach out to us. But for these amendments to really gather overwhelming momentum, don't we need a citizen social movement to get their action and attention? Speaking of hell yeah, hell yeah.
Hell yeah.
Do that, hell yeah. Absolutely, that's how things move. We can try to be nice and cajole and use information, and sometimes that's effective. And bring to them and send them articles like we do, the Greenwood article from Common Dreams and the other information. We can try to win them over that way, but a lot of times, as I like to say, if people aren't willing to see the light, we got to make sure they feel the heat. And that means pressure. And to bring that kind of pressure to bear means coming together and forming a movement. And that requires a certain strategy, certain deliberation, certain understanding of what it takes to find sort of the weak link of that person, to find out who maybe their funders are, what moves them, what their sort of weak link is, how to maybe respectfully embarrass them, if that's not too much of a contradiction, but to put pressure on them in a variety of different ways. And sometimes, as past social movements have shown us, sometimes that involves civil disobedience, but nevertheless, risking, what we believe strong enough to where we're willing to put our physical bodies on the line. And so it's not an easy task, particularly in your second comment and others. Don't we need some Republicans? Yeah, I mean, the numbers obviously bear that out, no question about it. We think that this, based on sort of the point I raised before about, hey, representatives have no voice right now. Your representative, who you may be trying to approach and reach, if he or she is a Republican, has no voice, none whatsoever, on trying to limit fundamentally the amount of money in election, if he or she has that desire, in trying to prevent independent expenditures, if he or she desires, in trying to fundamentally authorize what corporations can or cannot do, if he or she desires. Nothing. All of that is that power, that ability to do that defining is not in the hands of our elected representatives, even if they're Republicans, but in the hands of basically a majority of the Supreme Court. Another argument I think that's made, that we try to make with Republicans, is that this is very much a local right to decide issue, in that there have been plenty of Republicans in the past. Teddy Roosevelt, Republican, president, was successful in pushing the Tillman Act in 1907, a law that actually prevented corporations from donating money in elections. Abraham Lincoln spoke out against corporations. My God, even Donald Trump was quoted a couple of years ago before elected as saying, money corrupts. I know because I, influenced several public officials. So it came from the horse's mouth. So, there's a number of resources we've developed, one of which is sort of talking points, 10 or 12 reasons or rationales or points to make to conservatives. If you're interested in receiving that, reach out to us. We'd be glad to send that to you. In fact, send me an email. I'll personally send it to you. My email is Greg, Greg, at movetoamend, oneword.org. That's Greg at movetoamend.org. It's not an easy task, of course, because the Republican leadership wants to polarize this issue in the worst way because it serves their interests. So it's a lot more effective, we have found, to focus on this issue at a local level. And of course, where this has come up before voters at a local level, there have been over 705 communities that have passed either resolutions or ballot initiatives. Many of those are in communities that voted for a move to amend like initiative, that voted 2-1 for a Republican president or senator, that at the very same time on the very same ballot voted for this. So people at the local level, including GOPers, understand that the system is rigged against people.
And they're overwhelmingly in support of the We the People Amendment.
That's right. And the last comment that Lauren shared about the last Republican co-sponsor that HR 48 had was the late, great Walter Jones. We sure need more Republicans like that.
Yeah, it's kind of a catch-22 in a sense, in that, a lot of the Republicans who might be inclined to do this realize that if they do, they will be treated, they'll be ostracized. They'll be cut off from committees, or they'll be cut off from receiving money, which without money, given the current rules of the game, you basically have very little chance of winning unless you just completely pivot and you completely go get grassroots. And if these politicians have never done that before, that's not their orientation, they're going to lose. So it's just this vicious cycle downward, anti-democratic.
Yep. Oh, congratulations to our 2 winners for tonight. Let us know via chat whether you want a t-shirt or some postcards, and we'll be sure to send those your way. And without any further ado, let's go straight into the Hell Yeah moment for tonight. And thank you everyone again for joining us. Please be sure to share and retweet this live stream.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Greg.
Thanks, Alfonso. Thanks, Jennie.
Yes! God be glorified. God be glorified. Today we just got the news that the Byhalia pipeline has been canceled by Plains All American and Valero Energy Corporation, and that is only possible because of each and every one of you. If anybody is asking whether or not the movement is alive in Memphis today, you have your answer. The movement lives in Memphis, Tennessee, where people care about one another, where we care about the water that we drink and the communities where we are from. Today, Southwest Memphis's movement rings across this country and rings across this world, that even when multi-billion-dollar crude oil pipeline companies try to break us, try to divide us, try to destroy us, we will rise to the occasion. We will win. We've said it since October. We've said it months ago. We said it this past weekend. We say it now, that together, when we fight together, when we believe in what is possible together, and we'll win. There's more to do. There's city council votes that we still need to pass. There's legislation that needs to protect our most vulnerable communities. There's pollution that is still killing folks in Southwest Memphis 4 times more than other communities. There is a battle ahead, but we must celebrate today, victorious in our struggle against the Byhalia pipeline, that our coalition partners, Protect Our Aquifer, Sierra Club, Breach Collective, Southern Environmental Law Center, Birch Porter and Johnson, the Poor People's Campaign, Climate Reality Project, and dozens others. Today I was talking with the Hip Hop Caucus and Friends of the Earth that people around this country have galvanized for a movement for justice. And when we start to bring the people from the margins to the center, when we start to care about those who are being discriminated against the most, those who have faced environmental racism the most, those who have faced environmental injustice the most, when we start to bring those people, help me Jesus, from the periphery and move them into the center, something changes in our country. Something changes in our communities, and I am convinced that this moment in time, this movement in time is going to continue, and that as long as we keep fighting together, we keep advocating together, we keep working together, more justice days are coming. More justice days are coming. And so to our Memphis community against the pipeline family, to everyone who has invested any second, any prayer, any moment of energy, to Scotty Fitzgerald and Clyde Robinson and Marie Odom, to everybody who decided to take on these multi-billion-dollar companies, believing not just in what we could do with people power, but what we could do with God power. To you, I say thank you. To you, I say thank you, and I thank God for you. I thank God for you. I thank God for you, because this has been a movement that has been inspired by a spirit that cannot be broken, a spirit that cannot be bent, and a spirit that cannot be destroyed. And it is this spirit that is going to keep us moving forward. It is going to keep us getting justice. It's going to keep us passing the right legislation. It's going to keep us beating corporations who care more about their profits than the people in the communities that they thought were the path of least resistance. But we've shown them, Memphis and Shelby County, that we are indeed the path of resilience. God bless you. I love you. God loves you. And let's keep fighting together. Let's do this. Congratulations. Woo!
Unstoppable Sound Agency.
They out here stripping our democracy, piece by piece, city by city, state by state. Moral ID laws, emergency financial managers, citizens united. We gotta fight it.
Move. Corporations are not people. Too. Money is not speech. Man, in fact, it's the root of all right now. We have the right to be free. Move. Corporations are not people. Too. Money is not speech. Man, in fact, it's the root of all right now. Stand up and defend your democracy.
Have you recently read the Constitution? There seems to be some type of confusion. I thought it said the people were the institution and not the corporations that simply want to use them. The truth is currently a fusion of corporate loot and our government that is outright abusive. People need change. The state, it refuses. They're saying we're mistaken. Well, show us where the proof is. They control the media, movies, and the music, and determine where supplies of the water and food live. We need a strategy. Here is a solution. Build a movement to give our rulers improvements. An infusion of human to counteract the hubris that has our ecosystem near useless and our youth pissed. The founding fathers were flawed, but they knew this. So they gave us the tools to move with. Let's use them.
Move. Corporations are not people. Too. Money is not speech. Man, in fact, it's the root of all right now. And it's time to take to these streets. Move. Corporations are not people. Too. Money is not speech. Man, in fact, it's the root of all right now. So get on out of your seats.
Citizens United is the lie. Corporation doesn't know life, nor does it die. Profits from the 100 richest fictions of loan in 1 year could make all of poverty gone. The Republicans are lost. Democrats bought. Most American people have forgotten that we fought for healthcare, education, services, and safety. It wasn't kindness, it was war that ended slavery. Not advocating violence, I am saying that lately a lot of folks is dying in ways that seem shady. A lot of students is hiding from debt that they can't beat and asked to be excited about a future they can't see. It's not a climate crisis, it's a corporate crisis, because a corporation can never know what life is. Only a human can. What's the solution then? Amend the Constitution or it's revolution, man?
Move. Corporations are not people. Too. Money is not speech.
Man, in
fact, it's the root of all right now. To us to educate and to reach. Corporations are not people too. Money is not speech. In fact, it's the root of all right now. Which side of the fence do you find your feet?
Hip-hop never died, the corporation stole it and told us with bonus that we never owned it, they just loaned it out for the moment. It's the policy and culture matrix. When corporations shape it, only the prophet told it sacred, though they stole to make them. We don't have the convenience of giving up. Gotta swallow all of the real, even if it comes from sippy cups. It's not a matter of political correctness, it's a matter of having the knowledge of what respect is. You can't defend humanity without joining it. This is our responsibility, let's stop avoiding it. Instituting love as a practice and overcoming the fascists to achieve the democratic, economic, and ecological collapse. I am not being neurotic, I simply offer the facts. We the people are under a monster's attack. It's time to rise, open the eyes, and take our democracy back.
Corporations are not people.